Hi, I'm Victoria, and I am sitting in front of the camera and just talking, which is going to be or is one of my. Hi, I'm Victoria, and I am sitting in front of the camera just talking, just starting to talk. I am in my 50s, and a. I'm in my 50s, and I've discovered a lot about myself in the last few years. And part of discovering a lot about myself, I am sharing. So I have a podcast and Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, yeah, the social medias. And this best life of mine, and just taking you on a journey and sharing some things with you. So I'm in Studio B today, and today I wanted to talk about, yeah, something fell off to the side. I'm in Studio B today, and today I want to talk about, let's see, let's talk about Ancestry.com. Yeah, let's talk about Ancestry.com today. So, I am 54 years old. I'll be 55 in 5 months in March. And it wasn't until I was like 51, 52, something like that I found out who my father was. So, growing up as firstborn child, and I didn't know who my father was. I thought my father was my sister's dad because my mother married my sister's father when I was probably a year or two old. And with my sister's father, my stepfather, he is my dad, Jimmy. He's my dad. And my mother had two sons with him before having my sister, and both of the boys died. So it was me, then it would have been Jimmy, and then it would have been Tony, or maybe it would have been Tony and then Jimmy. And there is a photo of myself and Jimmy sitting on the sofa. I had to be like just under two, yeah, I wasn't 3 in that picture. And he was like not even a whole year old. But Jimmy passed away of pneumonia or something when he was 3 years old. Uh, yeah. And Tony was sort of a stillborn, or he never came home from the hospital. He was a preemie or something. But then my sister was born after Jimmy had passed away. So there's 4 years between my sister and I. I didn't find out that um, Jimmy Sr., my stepfather, wasn't my dad until I was probably 6 or 7 years old. And it's interesting the way that I found out. Just somebody in an effort to try and hurt my mother blurted out that he wasn't my father. Um, and that's how I realized that he wasn't my dad. So then it started asking questions about who my dad was. And my mother, I remember her saying, I put food in your belly, a roof over your head, clothes on your back. I'm your mom and your dad, Probably not in that sequence, but those are the things that she would say. I'm your mama and your daddy. I take care of you. Don't ask me about him. Well, the only thing that she ever told me really is that his name was James. and no last name, no family member, this, that, and the other. And when I was small and I would ask, I think I remember once my mom saying, "Don't ask me again." But also with my mother, a lot of times you just didn't ask again. Like if I said I wanted something and if she couldn't afford it, simple. I mean, let's say a popsicle. Can I get a popsicle off the ice cream truck? And she would say, "I can't afford it. Don't ask me again." And I do remember the ice cream truck going down the street and I just didn't ask. Um, or if it was something. The whole point was you just didn't keep asking the same question over and over. So I didn't. And I felt like I couldn't ask her who my dad was or more questions about it. So it wasn't until I left home, and I left home at 20. Um, and I want to say probably in my mid 20s, I signed up with Ancestry.com. I need to go back and take a look and see exactly how many years I've been on there. But with Ancestry.com, you have to, maybe I was older. Either way, you have to have an account. And sometimes if you don't pay the subscription, you don't have access to certain features of the website. You know, you pay your subscription, you get access to more stuff. But without a subscription, you just sort of have the surface. You know how it works. Surface areas that you can access on the website. So uh, when I was in my 30s, I remember reaching out to somebody that I found on Ancestry, and they didn't have any information for me. And then many years, there was a person that I could see on the website named Barbara that showed as my third cousin or aunt, something like that. Oh, I gotta pull out all those records and go over the details. But she never replied. She never would respond to my inquiries. And then I'm going to say probably didn't have a subscription for a couple of years or something. Around that time, life was lifing and the kids were little and working. And I do remember not being on Ancestry for some years. And then I would get back on there and try to like catch up on, if anybody has registered and new people that I connect with. Well, uh, with that said, this Barbara person, I guess her daughter must have registered. And I remember sending messages to different people, all the different people, if it was 6 degrees of separation, if it was a couple, I remember sending messages to these people. And I wasn't getting responses. Also, in the meantime, I was also working. Yeah, it's the timeline is like blurred right now because I've also was helping my mom look for her father. And subsequently, since then, I've helped a lot of different people through Ancestry find people. But getting back to me, um, when other people are on Ancestry, sometimes you can see their family trees and you could try and like put the puzzle together or this investigative type thing. I remember having, I would take printing paper and I would fold it like 2 or 3 sheets and I would fold it and staple it along the side and I would make myself these maybe 6 to 8 page little pamphlets or booklets. And it helped me stay organized with my research. So I wouldn't write it in a binder. I would just take a couple of pieces of printed sheet of paper, fold it. Now I got like 4 sheets and I stapled on the end, and I would header it with whatever person's name on Ancestry that I was focusing on at that time. And then as I went through their trees and everything, or people that we had connected, I would start writing notes in this little pamphlet for this particular person and the details of how far I would get. And I had several of these little pamphlets. I also wrote in spiral notebooks too, notes and things. And then I also remember taking just sheets of my printing paper and stapling it in the corner and just having a whole that I can flip through. And it was my way of keeping um, my research organized on Ancestry.com as I was looking for my dad or relatives. Also, it helped me stay organized of the other people that I was helping search through this as well. So um, when did the connection come? A connection came when I found out that, okay, so this Barbara, when I looked at her tree, there was a James listed as her uncle. A James in her tree listed as her uncle. So it had her mother, and it had all these other names listed in her tree. Either her tree or another tree that connected her, because sometimes you can put the trees on private and you can't see the people in the tree. You can't see if the person is male or female. You can see if they're male or female, but you can't see if they're living or deceased. Some of the features in there, depending on who took the test, what features you set up in the settings. Well, I could see that there was an uncle, and his name was James. So I was like, if we're related, and I was like, maybe that's my dad. That, and I did the research on that one person of his mother and his, because you can do all these searches. So then Barbara, her daughter must have responded, or either her daughter took the DNA test, and then I could see Barbara is my third cousin or aunt, and then I gotta look the name up. I gotta look the name up. But this person as my second cousin, and I remember messaging. I don't remember anybody giving me enough information that I messaged and talked to. But the way that I found out who my dad was is that in Ancestry, if you start just doing so much research on a certain person's name, and for me it was James Washington, I was like, if Barbara is showing as my third cousin and this is her uncle, maybe that's my dad. That's the only James that I see. So I followed this name, James Washington, down the rabbit hole. And I started just searching his birth, his year, the family members, the siblings that he had, the schools that he went to. And I then came across a yearbook picture, and he went to Cass Tech High School um, in the 60s. Yeah, I think late 50s, early 60s or something like that. He went to Cass Tech High School. And Cass Tech in Detroit, Michigan is known for being a school that the smartest and the best go to. You have to do an application process. It's an elite high school, and you really have to be top notch in grades and so much more to even be a part of this school. And the yearbook picture that I found of my father going to this school, he was the only black man, African American, in his class photo. So let me back up, because I didn't know he was my dad at the time. I just know that I was researching this guy as if he was, since I only knew James as the name. So I found this yearbook picture and I cropped it and I sent it to my mom. And I was like, does this look like my dad? I texted to my mom. And no, I said, who does this picture remind you of? Or who is this picture? And she says, is that Victor? Victor is my son. And I was like, no, it's not Victor. I said, I think it's my dad. And she's like, oh, okay. I said, I'm trying to find out some information. I think this might be the lead of me finding him. She was like, okay. Then I sent the picture to my Aunt Doreen, my mother's younger sister. And I asked her who this picture looked like. And to me, even in the photo, his yearbook photo, he looked like my son. And I was like, and my Aunt Doreen, she said, is that Victor? And I sent it to a couple other people, but they was like asking me if that was Victor, my son. I was like, no, I think this might be my dad. So um, I then came across in the ancestry research where he started going by James Washington Sr. And in some documents, most of the documents until then, he was just James Washington. But then all of a sudden, I started coming across these documents and where it lived, and he was going by James Washington Sr. So then in my head, I was like, well, if there's a James Washington Sr., there must be a James Washington Jr. I couldn't find anybody in Ancestry with that name, but I decided to go on social media. And I went on social media, Facebook, and I um, did a search for James Washington Jr. And I want to say 6 names came up or something. And I went into Messenger and I messaged each of these people the same text, because they're all the same name, same message in Messenger. And it went something of, hi, my name is Victoria. I never knew, I'm looking for family members or relatives. And the search has led me for James Washington Jr. I was like, do the surname blah blah blah, or the surname this sound familiar? And then I think I ended it in, please, this is no disrespect, and I appreciate any information, blah blah blah. So the first 2 people messaged me back, and we start chatting and comparing some things, and it was obvious that we were not. Um, it felt obvious that there was no connection. And then one of the third people, because I also, so I found these James Washingtons, but then I would go to their Facebook page and I would want to see pictures of them. And pictures of them was sort of, I was hoping would sort of give me an inkling if there was somebody that resembled me or something. But in one of them, we had over a dozen friends in common. And I was like, okay, here's a James Washington Sr., and we got over a dozen friends in common. So I started looking at the friends that we have in common, their names. And one of my friends, Tracy, I had quick access to reach out to her. The others probably didn't have a phone number, or only saw them every now and then, so there was no real conversation or communication with them. But one of them, Tracy, she was my business partner in the business that we had just started up. Like, I don't know if it was that same year or the year before. And we probably talked every day around that time. So I called her up and I was like, hey, Tracy, I see that you're Facebook friends with a James Washington. And I said, I think he might be my brother. And she was like, what? And she was like, James Washington, that's my boy. I used to, my bike, because they ride motorcycles. So she was like, yeah, let me give him a call. Now, I'm on the phone with her. she did put the phone down that she had me on. She called him on another line, but I can hear their conversation through the phone that I was on. And she was like, "Hey James, this is Trace." And they did a little catch up. Maybe they hadn't talked in a little bit, but and they were like, he's like, "Yeah, how's your mother? How's it?" Something like just some small talk, catching up. And then she went into, "Yeah, my business partner Victoria, you know, she wanted to see if she could talk to you because she's been looking for some family members." He then, and I could hear the whole conversation, he says to her, "Yes, I saw the message. I didn't get a chance to get back to her yet." And she says, "Well, can I give her your phone number?" And he was like, "Yes." She was like, "Can I give her your phone number to call?" And he was like, "Yes." So she says, "I'm going to give her to her." So she gets off the phone with him. She gives me the phone number. I get off the phone with her, and then I call him. And when I call him, the first thing I said, first thing he said, I don't know if this is good or bad. The first thing, well, I was like, "Hey, do the surnames, blah, 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 did any of that?" And he was like, "Yeah, Kincaid was a name that he had recognized, and the surname, Kincaid, was our father's mother's last name, so our grandmother's maiden name." And even her first name, I had put that in there. So he knew the first name, he knew um, the James Senior, and I think there was another name that I put in there. And I was like, I think we may be related. And he thought that, I said, "I think I'm your sister." And he said he thought that I was going to say that I was his daughter. I was like, "Oh, so you got daughters out there you don't know about?" I don't know if that's putting him on blast or something, but it was interesting. I'm like, "I think you're my brother." And he's like, "Oh, I thought you was going to say you're my daughter." Well, the very next day, which was a Tuesday, up the street from us, they have a bike night. And the very next day was that bike night, motorcycle bikes. Well, James, he was into motorcycles. And I was like, "Well, come on out this way," which was probably a 30-minute drive from where he lived. "Come out this way if you can. I'd love to meet you." And he was like, "Okay." So I had an extra Ancestry DNA kit that I wanted to give him. But he rode out there, and he didn't ride on his bike. He rode in his car. So he said and I told him that we would be in our red Ram truck and sitting in front of it. So he drove out to where we live, 30-minute drive, and he said he parked in a parking lot, and he said he saw me, obviously before I saw him. He saw me first, and he said he absolutely knew that I was his sister. He was like, "You look like our dad." I was like, "Okay." So of course we're talking and we're having conversation and we're laughing about a few things, and it's like, wow. And I think his daughter worked up, my niece worked up the street at a hospital, and she stopped by there, and it was sort of exciting and awkward at the same time, because I'm like, this is my half brother. In my head I'm thinking this is my half brother because the surnames match. And he was also related to the Barbara. Yeah, he knew of the Barbara in there, but either way. So as a gift for meeting him, I gave him this ancestry kit to go home and take the DNA test, and then we would wait to see if it was official, if he was. But he felt like we were absolutely siblings. And I remember making a joke to his daughter, my niece, "Well, I'm your aunt." And it was sort of like there's no proof, just that he pulled up. But, it was like through the ancestry, if this is it and this is it, and I believe that's my dad, then we're good. But either way, he took the kit and he went home and he took it immediately. I think his daughter even helped him do it, and he mailed it off. He had to spit in a little vial and put it in here in the envelope and mail it off, and they would do the testing. And it had been a couple of weeks. Well, he must have gotten the results like early morning and it came across on his email on his phone. And he screenshot it and he sent it to me. He texted to me. So when I woke up at like 7 a.m. or something, and I looked at my phone, it said half brother. The DNA results came back from Ancestry and it said half brother. And it was like, um, it was like this rush of, I know, I know now. I'm 51 years old. Um, and I know now. Goodness, I really do need to go back and look at a few things because it might have been 52 because I'm 54 now and I feel like I've known James now for just a couple of years. And I know now. I know who my father was. Um, Unfortunately, he had passed away the same year that I had gotten married. I got married in 93, April of 93, and he passed away of cancer in June of 93. So he was already gone um, way before I really had even taken the ancestry test and was trying to find him. He was already gone. But now I have this brother in my life. And now I have three new brothers in my life. Of course, I have two brothers that my mom had after having my sister, but I've found these three brothers, and there's a sister that I've yet to meet, but I've met all three brothers. James Jr. being the eldest, and then there's a Derek that's after James, and then there would have been me, and then there would have been Ian, and my sister is Kai. Um, James and Ian live right, I would say, up the street. James is he's moved from the house that when I first met him, but he's probably 40-minute drive away. I don't even think it's that much. And Ian is probably a 15-minute drive away. And these are, well, James is probably 45 minutes away, and Ian is probably about 15-minute drive away. And uh, James has been here to our home quite a few times. I helped him move out of the house he was in to the new house that he's in. Um, he is so phenomenal. He has been, James is so um, arms wide open. He called me sis. Um, it truly feels like we've always known each other. And he has been so like just warm and welcoming and like um, the feeling that I have is that it's an interesting feeling. It feels like I am whole because now I know what the other half of me is or was. When you only know one side of your family, when you don't have the luxury of knowing the two people that your makeup consists of, half of my mother, half of my father. I only know my mother's side of my makeup. And the questions and the need and the want to have my father in my life, you know, somebody could say daddy issues. I don't know. I'm sure that's part of it. But also, I was a very different child and often was reminded that I was quirky or a nerd um, or that I was special or um, I definitely stood out for so many different reasons. Um, and me just wanting to understand me at a young age, you know, what's the other side of me. So James Jr., you know, we've had lunch, we've had many discussions because he's been so forthright and just sharing with me. And we've been at lunch or something a few times, and he would just stop. He would just stop in the middle of a bite or the conversation, and he would look at me and would say, he's done it a handful of times now. He would say, "You look just like Dad." And even when I think about it, I'm the only one that never got to meet him, and coming to the understanding that I look the most like him. And it's like, what? It's like it's beautiful. And then learning that that yearbook book picture that I found with him at Cass Tech, learning the brilliance of my father, the brilliant man that was James Washington Sr., that he was an artist, he was a musician, that he built, he was a builder. Um, you know, he was the first, I'm going to mess it up. I got to get the boys to tell me again that he was the first uh, black man to be asked to be a part of MIT. I really got to go back and get my story straight, but I believe it was MIT. That he was a brilliant man. And then, you know, through James meeting my brother Ian, and Ian and I look a lot alike. And a matter of fact, Ian and my son Victor look a lot alike. Like if you didn't know that they were, um, that they had just met each other, you would think that they were either father and son. But Ian's too young. Well, he's not actually. He's not too young. Victor could be a son, or brothers. I would say probably most people would probably think they were brothers, but they look so much alike. And there's a picture. I'll try to insert it here. With all three of us standing next to each other, me, Ian, and Victor, and we all look alike. But um, talking with Ian and getting to know Ian, and he has a daughter and a son, and they're 10 years apart. But so our son, Victor, um, when he was in the eighth grade, it was, for me, it seemed like a light switch. Like he was doing really good in school, and then flick, and then all of a sudden he started just getting bad grades. And the school wanted to test him and test him to see if something was going on or something. And turns out he was gifted. He tested high IQ and he tested gifted. So then we moved from where we were into a new city and we put him in school, the school up the street, the public school, and it wasn't a good fit. He was much far ahead than a lot of the students in the school. Well, one, the school had a large Hispanic population, and my thinking is because they spent so much time trying to get the Hispanic population up to par, and with the language barrier sometimes, because it seemed like it was a lot of first generation Americans, or they were brought here young, that some of the other students and were suffering in the level that they should be at. So when Victor started going there, he was, I believe, tutoring and helping some seniors, and he was only in the 8th grade. And then he was grading papers. So he wasn't really being challenged. He was almost like helping a lot with other students. Um, so we decided to take him out and put him in a school called Ropert. Ropert is a school for gifted children. Well, when we were going to put him in Ropert, Roper said, well, you need to test him before he's admitted into the school. And I was like, we already tested him. And they said, no, you need to get another test. So we tested him again, and the IQ score went up. Well, Roper was like, well, if he's going to come here, he needs to repeat the past grade. So they wanted him to repeat the 8th grade. Victor didn't want to do that. Subsequently, we wound up, Victor started homeschooling. And then, so fast forward, I'm talking to this half brother, Ian, with a daughter. And at the time, I want to say, well, either way, they tried to get her into Roper. And Roper said she needed to test again. So she had been tested. And then they tried to put her in Roper. And Roper was like, before she can come into the school, she got to get tested again. They tested her a second time, and her IQ went up. Okay, so here's a brother that I found through one brother from Ancestry DNA, who has a daughter who tested gifted, and my son has tested gifted. Just coincidence that they both tried to get into this gifted school, the same gifted school, at different times because their age difference, but into the same school. They both had tested high IQ and then had to take the test the second time to get in the school. Both of their scores went up the second testing. What? Okay. So then backtracking, and our father being at Cass Tech, Cass Technical high school student, I never found an IQ test for him, but needless to say, or just putting the pieces together, it obviously came from our father. And then I don't know if one of the videos you heard me talk about where I had learning disability when I was younger, and it wasn't until I was in my mid 40s that I got tested through my psychiatrist. I was going to therapy. She suggested that I go and get tested, and the test results came back, and it was like a all morning till afternoon type of testing, and it was an IQ testing, and it came back that I was adult ADHD, that I also had PSTD, and that I had traits of giftedness, and that there was something else in there, because I had already known that I was dyslexic, so maybe the dyslexic was a part of it. So I know now that from taking this test, I know that confirms that I am dyslexic, confirms that I am adult ADHD, confirms that I have suffered from some PTSD, which that's a whole nother video, how that came about, and that I have traits of giftedness as well. Wow. And then talking to my brothers, and the music, the math, uh, the science, there was something else, and the building, the art, the artistic, that we all share some of that, and our children share those tendencies as well. Victor was tested gifted, but both my daughters have never been tested, but there is different elevations on the spectrums with them as well. Now, spectrum doesn't mean bad. You can be gifted, and on the spectrum as well. So it just, wherever you fall. So just all of this, all of my life, wanting to know what the other half of me was, and now all of these aha moments, aha, oh, oh, I get it now. I get it now. So many things in my life that I did not understand the origin or the root or the cause or the why or the, just it's incredible. Nature versus nurture. The DNA don't lie. The DNA don't lie. Little funny caveat there to insert in this part. Um, like a lot of African Americans, people talk about, oh, I got Indian in me. I got Indian. I got Indian. And Native American Indian of some sort. Well, the DNA, and it's changed a little because at first it said I had zero Indian. So then my mom took the test because I was also helping her find her dad. And somebody else in our family took the test. Oh, and my husband took the test for his side of the family. And no Indian. And on my husband's side of the family, is some of his relatives was like, what are you talking about? It's wrong. And I was like, well, the DNA don't lie. We don't got no Indian in us, y'all. It's just hilarious because that is definitely a thing with the African Americans and saying that there's Indian in them when it's not. It could have been some Caucasian and or Spanish type root or something like that. Well, uh, Ancestry is always updating, and since then, 2% of indigenous Americans have showed up in my DNA. And then on my mother's DNA, she actually showed up 25% French. That's a lot of French. Yeah. So I'll have to share the story of her father that I did find. That's incredible too. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, so not knowing my father and finding my father through ancestry.com, finding brothers. I'll flash a couple of pictures because um, not this not this year. Gosh, it could have been 2 years ago. 2 years ago, February 12th, because that's my daughter's birthday. Um, Myself, James, and Ian, who lives right here, drove to Ohio to see Derek, our brother, for me meeting him for the first time. And I think Ian said he had only met him at the funeral of their father. They, we all got different mothers. Probably didn't put that part in there. The two younger ones have the same mother, but everybody else got different mothers. So there's five of us. Yeah, five of us, and that would make four mothers. But so we all got in a car on my daughter's birthday, and my daughter was with us, and we drove to Ohio to meet up with Derek, and Derek had his son with him. Derek had flew in, I believe, from Texas to have uh, some tests ran at a major hospital up there. So they put him in an Airbnb, and he flew in with his son into Ohio to have tests at these test centers or a hospital up there. So he was having some medical challenges. And since he was so close and the drive was an hour, under 2 hours, the drive was under 2 hours away, we all hopped in my car and we drove there. James and myself and my daughter, Perry Lauren, we all jumped in the car and we drove to Ohio to meet Derek and his son, Darren. And I got pictures of that too, but it was just so awesome. So so awesome. It was wow. Yeah, I have to share more. I have to get them on. See if I can get them on and talk. Um, I don't think I've ever even posted anything on social media about it. I've told a couple of friends and family members, but I have not posted anything on social media about finding my half brother. I don't believe I did. I know I haven't posted any photos of us. So this will be the first time I share with public a photo of us. I have to make sure it's okay. Yeah, I have to ask. That would be the polite thing to do, to ask if I can share that photo. It's okay. Hmm. Never even, I didn't even think about it until just now that that might be something they don't want. But yeah, that's how I found my father. Thanks for listening, guys. If you sat through my video and just to hear more about me, I appreciate you giving that time to me. Your time is precious. You can be doing so many other things with your time, but you chose to listen in to know a little bit more about a stranger, and it's appreciated. So they say like the video, share the video, definitely leave comments, and again, I just appreciate you using your time to get to know me. Thanks for watching.